The name Mozart evokes tales of a genius child prodigy, touring Europe before reaching adolescence and growing up to become a composer. This describes not only the famous Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart, but also Maria Anna Mozart, his older sister. The only difference is that we will never hear her music, because none of it was preserved for future generations. Despite showing equal potential as her brother in their childhood, Maria Anna was not able to pursue a musical career as an adult because of her family's social class. Men of all social classes had the ability to become musicians, but only upper-class women were able to choose a musical career. This opportunity gap has created an absence of female musicians in history, making it difficult for women musicians today to see themselves represented in history. Maria Anna Mozart, affectionately known as Nannerl, was born in 1751 and began studying piano at the age of 8. It was quickly discovered that she was a child prodigy, and her childhood was marked with her performances across Europe. The reaction of her audiences showed that she had great musical talent. The Correspondance littéraire philosophique et critique, a periodical describing cultural events for the French aristocracy, praised her by saying, "She plays the harpsichord marvelously and performs the longest and most difficult pieces with impressive precision." Her father wrote to a friend, "My little girl plays the hardest pieces by Schobert with the most incredible precision, so that the contemptible Schobert cannot conceal his jealousy." After her triumphant childhood tours, Nannerl's music career took a tragic turn. Despite being as highly esteemed as her brother by their contemporaries, the destinies of the two siblings separated when Nannerl turned 18. Nannerl was an adult now, and it was no longer appropriate for her to perform music. It was acceptable for a little girl to perform, but women who performed were considered prostitutes. Her father, Leopold Mozart, had devoted his life to building the reputation of the Mozart name, and he was not going to let Nannerl undermine his efforts. When Nannerl's parents told her she could not perform anymore, she did not fight back. She accepted her tragedy because she understood the situation she was facing. Money laid at the heart of the issue, and she could no longer make a profit for her family by performing. Thus, Wolfgang became a professional musician, and Nannerl did not. Though Nannerl was no longer giving performances, she continued to play and even composed keyboard music. She sent one of her original pieces to her brother, who wrote back, "I'm amazed to discover that you can compose so delightfully. In a word, your piece is beautiful. You must compose more often." It remains unknown whether she took her brother's advice and wrote more, because no compositions labeled with her name survive today. Before the end of her career, Nannerl had the ability to join a group of women who triumphed over the cultural norms of their time period. Clara Schumann, Amy Beach, Francesca Caccini, Barbara Strozzi, and Fanny Mendelssohn are just a few of these triumphant women. This group was able to create a name for themselves in a male-dominated profession. Though most of these women are not household names like Mozart or Beethoven, those who study music history deeply still know their stories. However, their stories are only known by the classical music community, while their male counterparts are celebrated by society at large. Just as Nannerl's triumph was shared by other women, her tragedy is also shared by other women. This tragedy is that women in music history have had their musical opportunities determined by their wealth. Though Nannerl Mozart was not able to have a career as an adult because of her family's social status, other upper-class women did have the chance to become professional musicians. A woman would not be able to make a significant amount of money by performing music, so she must have a wealthy family to support her financially. The most common way for women to have a musical career was by becoming a court musician. However, they often performed music written by men which focused more on erotic lyrics and dancing, rather than artistry. Women who had this type of career included Elisabeth Jacquet de la Guerre, Isabelle d'Este, and Anna Bonn. While women were only given the chance to be musicians if they were wealthy, men of all economic classes have been able to become musicians. Bach and Beethoven are just a few male composers who were not from aristocratic families, but are still widely known today. Male composers were handed the opportunity to have a career as soon as they chose that path for themselves. Female composers had to fight for that opportunity, and they only succeeded if their social status allowed for it. This tragedy has left music history devoid of women's narratives. The effects of this tragedy have not only affected our society throughout history, but continue to affect us today. By erasing female musicians from history, we deny present-day women the opportunity to find role models, an essential component to the development of career aspirations.
So sometimes it really comes down to having somebody who looks like you doing that stuff, to be that viable possibility.
Clara Schumann once wrote, "I can't be a composer. There haven't been any female composers. Why even try?" She did not understand that she was capable of writing music because she had not seen other women write music. Today, centuries after Schumann, women musicians still struggle to see themselves widely represented in history, tragically continuing the cycle of exclusion through lack of encouragement that has been impacting us for centuries. Nannerl Mozart's story is just one facet of a diverse array of female musicians from history. However, her story clearly points to the disadvantage faced by women throughout history. She was not able to succeed because she was a woman from a middle-class family, though men from middle-class families had much success in their careers. Bach, Beethoven, and even her own brother Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart were all from middle-class families and are highly esteemed musicians. But the only women who were able to have musical careers were those from upper-class families who performed as court musicians, and even those women are not widely known today. This tragedy has created a lack of representation that still harms women musicians today, denying them the ability to see themselves portrayed in history. To begin to reverse this cycle of exclusion, we need to include the stories of women in our musical history narrative. This means that we must not only celebrate the male Mozart, but we must also remember the female Mozart.